You didn't stumble here by chance. Something in you called this moment forth, a subtle recognition that what you've been searching for isn't hidden in complexity, but concealed within the very ease your mind has been trained to distrust. From the time you were small, you were taught that only struggle gives life meaning, that sweat and sacrifice are the currency of success, that worth must always be earned. That program has been running for so long, you may not even see it anymore. Yet it rules you like a silent code, and so when you encounter the possibility that manifestation could be simple, your body resists, your mind whispers, "This can't be real. If it were that easy, everyone would already have it." That is the loop. You've been caught in the spell of complexity. But listen closely. The quantum doesn't answer to force, it responds to coherence. Think of it less like climbing a mountain and more like tuning a frequency. The clearer your signal, the more reality rushes to meet it. The harder you push, the more interference you create. That is the paradox. What if the doorway you've been waiting for is not another ritual, not another checklist, not another endless grind, but a return to simplicity? What if ease is not your enemy but your compass? This is not passivity, it is precision. It is remembering that a river doesn't strain to flow, a tree doesn't force itself to grow, and you too were never meant to manifest through exhaustion. Here's the truth. Friend, you don't attract what you chase. You attract what you embody. An embodiment is not a performance. It is the quiet decision to become what you already desire. Here, now, without hesitation, this is the moment. Breathe into it. Let the old story dissolve. Simplicity is not weakness. It is mastery. And it begins with you choosing, in this very breath, to allow it to be effortless. You felt that breath, that release into simplicity. But notice how quickly the weight of the conditioning tries to return. The voice of culture, the echo of parents, teachers, systems, it insists that struggle is noble, that suffering is proof of worth. That belief has been passed like an heirloom, handed down for generations until it became the invisible atmosphere you breathe. Look at the stories society glorifies. The hero who fights tooth and nail, the worker who burns out to prove loyalty, the lover who must endure hardship to earn affection. From the earliest myths to modern media, we've been shown again and again pain is the gateway to significance. We've been trained to associate effort with legitimacy. If it didn't cost us blood or sweat, it must not be real. And so, when you discover that reality itself is built not on force but on frequency, a contradiction emerges. The old paradigm tells you work harder, push stronger, control more detail. The quantum truth whispers, instead align, attune, allow. One is built on tension, the other on release. And this clash between paradigms is why so many people fail to step into the field of effortless creation. Think of your nervous system. It was shaped by survival instincts that rewarded vigilance, hyper-awareness, constant effort. In that mode, every desire becomes another battle. You feel you must conquer time, manipulate circumstances, prove yourself worthy before receiving. But the quantum doesn't operate in survival mode. It mirrors coherence, not exhaustion. It echoes clarity, not confusion. This is why you feel such resistance when simplicity is presented. The cultural voice screams, if it's easy, it must be shallow. If it doesn't demand sacrifice, it can't have value. That voice is not truth. It is programming. A loop designed to keep you tangled in cycles of labor without liberation. Consider this: some of the most transformative moments of your life didn't arrive through force. They appeared when you were open, when you weren't striving, when you allowed synchronicity to guide you. The relationship that unfolded when you least expected it. The opportunity that surfaced without effort. the insight that struck like lightning, unplanned and undeniable. Those weren't accidents. They were the few cracks where cultural programming loosened its grip, and you slipped into alignment. But here's the paradox: instead of recognizing those moments as your natural state, you dismissed them as luck. Why? Because they didn't fit the narrative you were taught, that only sweat and sacrifice create results. The conditioning is so deep that when ease arrives, you distrust it. You sabotage it. You run back to struggle because struggle feels familiar. Pause here. Feel that truth land. How many times have you complicated something that was already flowing? How many times have you questioned a blessing, doubted an opportunity, or overanalyzed a gift until it slipped away? That wasn't fate punishing you. That was programming pulling you back into the old story. But listen, friend, you are not bound to that program. Awareness itself begins the unraveling. Once you see the lie that worth does not equal suffering, you weaken its grip. Once you understand that energy follows coherence, not complexity, you begin to live differently. You act not to prove your value, but to embody it. This is the transition humanity is standing in right now. A collective shift from the paradigm of effort and exhaustion to the paradigm of alignment and flow. You are not late to this awakening. You are right on time. So what's the first step? Not another checklist, not another technique, simply recognition. Recognition that ease is not a trap, but a teacher. That life doesn't require struggle to have meaning. That your value has never depended on how much you labor or how much you sacrifice. When you begin to see this, a door opens. You start noticing where you've been complicating the simple, where you've been chasing validation instead of embodying coherence. And in that awareness, you reclaim your energy, no longer wasted on proving. It becomes available for creating. This is the revolution hidden in plain sight. The power of stepping out of cultural conditioning and into quantum alignment. And as we move forward, you'll see why this shift isn't only philosophical, it's the very physics of consciousness. From the moment you glimpse that cultural programming, another layer reveals itself: the habit of overcomplication. It's subtle, almost invisible, yet it infiltrates every step of the manifestation process. You set an intention, feel the spark of desire, and almost immediately, the mind rushes in with strategies, rituals, techniques. Instead of resting in coherence, you begin building a maze of effort around what was already whole. Think of how often you've done this. You declare, "I want this outcome," but rather than allowing alignment to unfold, you reach for another practice, another affirmation, another vision board, another set of rules. The field was already listening. The signal was already sent, but doubt whispers that one expression isn't enough. So you repeat it 1,000 times, not from power, but from fear. And fear distorts the signal. Quantum reality doesn't respond to noise. It responds to clarity. Imagine tuning an old radio. You turn the dial slowly, catching fragments of static, broken words, half-heard songs. That's what most people's energy sounds like: fragmented, scattered, inconsistent. But then, with the slightest adjustment, the music arrives strong and pure. The station didn't suddenly appear. It was there all along. You simply aligned with it. Manifestation works the same way. The more you complicate the process, the more static you create. Every layer of doubt, every unnecessary ritual, every what-if thought scrambles the broadcast. Instead of coherence, you're transmitting interference. And the field mirrors that confusion back to you. Here's the trap: complication feels like progress. The ego convinces you that the more steps you take, the more spiritual you become, the more you prove your devotion. But devotion measured through complexity is still resistance in disguise. It is the fear that simplicity cannot be trusted. Let's pause and bring this home. Think back to times when something flowed effortlessly. Did you map out every detail? Did you obsess over each micro step, or did it feel more like an unfolding, natural, and unforced? That's coherence. That's simplicity in action. And that's the very state most people overlook because it feels too easy. But simplicity is not laziness. It's precision. The universe does not need a checklist to respond. It needs a clear signal. A scattered light illuminates little, but a focused beam can cut through steel. Likewise, a fragmented frequency dissolves into noise, while a coherent vibration reshapes reality. The challenge is trust. Can you trust that one clear intention, fully embodied, is enough? Can you release the compulsion to keep proving, keep repeating, keep complicating? This is the initiation, not into more doing, but into deeper being. Notice how your body reacts when you hear this. Maybe there's tension, a tightening in the chest. The thought, but if I don't keep trying, how will it happen? That's the old program surfacing, the conditioning that equates worth with struggle. But beneath that noise, your deeper self already knows reality is not created through complexity. It is collapsed through coherence. This doesn't mean action disappears. It means action flows from alignment, not fear. You move when moved, not because you're scrambling to compensate for doubt. The difference is profound. One drains you, the other replenishes you. One generates noise, the other strengthens your signal. Think again of the radio. The song is always playing, even when you can't hear it. You don't create the music by spinning the dial. You only align with what's already there. In the same way, your desired reality already exists in the quantum field. You don't build it through rituals. You align with it through clarity. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. Life stops feeling like a struggle to control. It begins to feel like recognition. You stop pushing against the current and realize the current has been carrying you all along. This is the trap of overcomplication exposed. And the moment you see it, you gain the power to step out. The power to stop mistaking noise for devotion and instead allow coherence to be enough. Because coherence is not only enough, it is everything. Which brings us to the deeper principle at play. The very foundation of manifestation that both science and spirit confirm coherence itself. You felt the trap of overcomplication, the static of too many signals colliding. Now let's step deeper into the principle that dissolves the noise: coherence. In quantum physics, coherence describes the moment when particles synchronize, moving not as scattered fragments, but as one unified wave. Before coherence, each element acts alone, random, chaotic, inefficient. But once coherence arises, the entire system amplifies itself. Small inputs generate massive results. Energy multiplies rather than disperses. Your consciousness works the same way. When your thoughts pull in one direction, your emotions in another, and your actions contradict them both, you create incoherence. You may say, I believe in abundance, while secretly fearing lack. You may affirm love while doubting your worth. This fragmented signal cannot collapse into a single timeline because it is broadcasting too many at once. The quantum field doesn't punish you for this. It simply mirrors back the dissonance. But when you align, when mind, heart, and body move in harmony, you emit a coherent frequency. In that moment, your energy becomes a unified field, and a unified field carries immense power to shape reality. Think of a choir. A dozen voices singing out of tune create noise, no matter how sincere each singer may be. But those same voices tuned together In perfect harmony, the sound lifts the room, shakes the soul, reverberates far beyond what any single voice could achieve. That is coherence. That is resonance. That is why manifestation is not about trying harder, it's about tuning your inner voices until they sing the same song. This isn't only poetic imagery. Neuroscience shows the same truth. When your brain is locked in high beta stress waves, the patterns scatter thoughts, race, focus splinters, clarity disappears. But when you shift into alpha or theta states, your brain waves synchronize. Creativity expands. Intuition sharpens. Your subconscious becomes more receptive. Coherence in the mind opens the door for coherence in reality. The heart tells the same story. Researchers studying heart rhythm variability found that when you're anxious or afraid, your heart signal looks jagged, irregular. But when you experience gratitude, love, or peace, those rhythms smooth into coherence. And here's the extraordinary part. Your heart broadcasts an electromagnetic field measurable several feet beyond your body. That coherent signal interacts with others, with environments, with the quantum field itself. Your coherence becomes contagious. So pause and imagine this. Imagine what happens when your mind, heart, and body align not as three scattered instruments, but as one symphony. Imagine the power of walking into the world broadcasting clarity instead of contradiction. Reality, like a mirror, has no choice but to reflect that coherence back to you. This is why manifestation sometimes feels instant. It isn't random luck. It's the rare moment when all parts of you lined up and sang the same frequency. No conflict, no fragmentation, just coherence and reality collapsed into form. The challenge is sustaining it. Most people touch coherence for a few moments during meditation, in nature, in the flow of creativity, and then slip back into dissonance. They forget, and the static returns. But here is the key. Coherence is not built through strain. It is revealed through release. You don't fight your way into harmony. You dissolve the interference until harmony emerges on its own. Think of water rippling after a stone is thrown. The surface distorts, but left alone, it settles back in a stillness. Your inner state works the same way. Beneath the noise, coherence is your natural rhythm. The work isn't to create it, it's to stop disturbing it. Feel that truth. Coherence isn't foreign, it's remembered. And the more you rest into it, the more you discover that life begins to align without your constant interference. Decisions feel clear, opportunities flow toward you, synchronicities multiply, not because you pushed harder, but because you stopped scattering your energy. This is why coherence is the key. It is the state where manifestation becomes inevitable, not forced. The state where less effort produces more result. The state where you finally understand that reality doesn't answer to fragmented desire, it answers to unified being. Which brings us to another illusion that must be dismantled: the obsession with time. Because even when coherence is reached, many sabotage it by clinging to calendars, deadlines, and urgency. Let's explore why timing is the great deceiver in the realm of quantum manifestation. We ended with coherence, the harmony that collapses possibility into form. But even when you reach that clarity, another trap often arises: time. The mind insists on a deadline, whispering, "When will it happen? How long must I wait?" And the moment you tie your manifestation to a clock, coherence begins to fracture. Why? Because urgency is just scarcity dressed in disguise. When you demand that something arrive by Friday, by next month, by the end of the year, you step out of alignment and into anxiety. You declare to the field, "I don't believe it exists," until it appears at this specific moment. That vibration is not trust. It is doubt wrapped in urgency. Quantum reality doesn't operate on calendars. It doesn't tick along a straight line of hours and days. Physics has already shown us that time bends, folds, and stretches depending on perspective. At the quantum level, time doesn't even exist as we imagine it. There is only now this field of vibration, this eternal present where all possibilities already coexist. Think of light traveling from distant stars. Some of what you see in the night sky left its source millions of years ago. In a sense, you are gazing at the past while standing in the present. Linear time dissolves in that awareness. If starlight can bend the rules, why would you assume your manifestation must obey your calendar? The real determinant is not when, it is readiness. The quantum field reflects your state of coherence, not your countdown. When you are aligned, the manifestation appears not because time has passed, but because your vibration matched the reality where it already exists. Reflect on this. Have you ever wanted something desperately, only to have it appear the moment you stopped fixating on it? That wasn't coincidence. That was you releasing urgency, stepping out of scarcity, and slipping into alignment. The field mirrored it instantly once you let go of the deadline. Deadlines shrink possibility. They create tunnel vision, narrowing your awareness to a single window of time. But alignment expands possibility, opening doors you couldn't plan, opportunities you couldn't predict. When you let go of the when, you allow the how to surprise you. Pause here and feel into the paradox. The moment you decide you must have it now, you declare that you don't already embody it. You reinforce separation, but the moment you relax, embody the reality as though it already is, and release the calendar, you collapse time itself. You move into timelessness, where readiness replaces waiting. This is why children often manifest effortlessly. They don't sit calculating how many weeks it will take. They play in imagination, feel the joy of having it, and then move on. Their bodies aren't clenching against a deadline, they are present, and presence is coherence. But the conditioned adult mind struggles with this. We were taught to measure everything by effort. Over time, hours worked, days endured, years invested. So when manifestation doesn't fit that formula, it feels untrustworthy. Yet that formula belongs to the old paradigm of force, not the quantum paradigm of resonance. Consider this image a seed in the soil. You don't dig it up every day to check its progress. You water, you trust, you allow. The timing is embedded in the seed itself. The same is true of your desires. They carry their own frequency of readiness. Your role isn't to force them onto your calendar, it's to nurture alignment until they naturally emerge. So the next time you feel impatience, pause. Recognize that urgency is a signal of misalignment. Shift your focus from when to who, not when will this arrive, but who must I be to embody this timeline. The answer to that question collapses the waiting. Because when you become the version of you who already has it, the field echoes that choice instantly. And that shift from waiting for the future to becoming it now is where chasing ends and embodiment begins. We just dismantled the illusion of time, and now the next veil lifts the difference between chasing a desire and embodying it. This is the pivot point that separates endless striving from effortless manifestation. Think of how most people approach what they want. They chase. They imagine the desire as something out there, something separate that must be hunted, pursued, conquered. Their language reveals it. I'm trying to attract. I'm going after. I need to bring it closer. Each phrase reinforces the same illusion that the desire and the self exist apart. And so, the chase begins. But chasing creates distance. Each step taken under the belief that I don't have it yet pushes the desire further away. The field mirrors that vibration of lack, with more experiences of lack. You run faster, but the horizon runs with you. Embodiment dissolves that illusion. Instead of chasing the external, you internalize the state of already being the one who has it. You shift identity, not just intention. You don't act as a seeker hoping to receive, you move as the version of yourself who already lives inside the reality you desire. That shift changes everything. Consider a tree. It doesn't chase sunlight, stretching frantically, calculating each ray. It grows upward steadily, embodying its design, and the sunlight meets it. Or a river, it doesn't run after the ocean. It becomes flow itself, and the ocean welcomes it. This is the path of embodiment, aligning your nature with what you seek until separation dissolves. This isn't mere positive thinking. It's identity resonance. Imagine two tuning forks strike one, and the other vibrates automatically if it shares the same frequency. Embodiment is you becoming the struck fork. You vibrate as the reality itself, and the external world can't help but echo. But here lies the struggle. Many people attempt embodiment as another performance. They say the words, act the part, dress the role, but inside, they still vibrate with doubt. That's not embodiment, that's mimicry. True embodiment isn't surface-level behavior. It's an internal alignment so complete that contradiction vanishes. Ask yourself when you declare abundance. Do your emotions agree? Do your actions match? Or are you saying one thing, feeling another, and acting from fear? Embodiment happens only when all parts of you, thoughts, emotions, choices sing the same note. Anything else is chasing. And here's the paradox. Embodiment feels effortless. Chasing feels exhausting. You can sense the difference in your body. Chasing tightens the chest, creates urgency, breeds anxiety. Embodiment relaxes the system, opens the breath, and fills you with quiet certainty. In chasing, you live as if the desire is missing. In embodiment, you live as if it already is. Think back to a time when something flowed into your life without effort, a relationship that blossomed naturally, an opportunity that seemed to find you, a moment of insight that shifted everything. You weren't chasing those things. You were embodying a state open, receptive, aligned, and reality mirrored it. So how do you practice embodiment? Begin with presence. Instead of asking, how do I get this thing? Ask, who am I when this thing is already real? Then step into that role, not in fantasy, but in energy. Walk, speak, breathe, decide as that version. Not someday, now. Notice the shift this creates. Urgency dissolves. You no longer stare at clocks, no longer obsess over outcomes. Why? Because you are no longer waiting for a future to arrive, you are living it already. And the field, governed by resonance, has no choice but to organize itself around your new frequency. This is the profound truth: you don't attract what you chase. You attract what you embody. An embodiment is not effortful striving, it's remembering. Remembering the version of you that already exists in the field. Remembering the reality that's already entangled with your being. This remembrance leads us directly into the next revelation: entanglement and unity consciousness. The science and spirit behind why your desires were never separate from you in the first place. We ended with embodiment, the moment you stop chasing and begin becoming. And this leads us directly into one of the most extraordinary revelations of quantum reality: entanglement. In the language of physics, entanglement describes the bond between particles that remain connected, no matter how far apart they are in space. Alter one, and the other responds instantly, not through force, not through distance, but through a mysterious unity that transcends time. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Yet modern science confirms it again and again. Now, take that principle beyond particles. Apply it to pure desires. The instant a desire arises in your consciousness, it creates an entangled counterpart within the field. You and the fulfillment of that desire are not separate. They are two expressions of the same reality, already linked at the quantum level. You're not reaching for something outside of yourself. You're simply tuning into the part of you that is already entangled with it. But here's the paradox. Most people treat their desires as if they're over there, distant, unattached, waiting to be earned. They create a subject-object relationship, me here, desire there. That assumption reinforces separation, and separation is the great illusion. When you see yourself as separate from your desire, you begin to push, chase, grasp. But when you recognize entanglement, everything shifts. You stop asking, "How do I get there?" and start remembering, "I am already connected." The work is not to build a bridge, but to clear the interference that blocks your awareness of the bridge that's already there. Think of the way intuition works. You think of someone just before they call. You feel prompted to take a different route and stumble on an unexpected opportunity. These are not random accidents. They are glimpses of your entanglement with the field of infinite possibilities. You tuned in for a moment, and the connection became visible. This is why embodiment is so powerful. It harmonizes your frequency with the reality you're already entangled with. You're not pulling it closer. You're dissolving the illusion of separation. And once you dissolve that illusion, manifestation doesn't feel like creating something new. It feels like remembering something already true. Unity consciousness is the spiritual mirror of this principle. At the deepest level, there is no me and that. There is only one field, one awareness, expressing itself in infinite forms. What appears as separation is just a trick of perception, like the way waves on the ocean seem distinct, yet all belong to the same water. When you grasp this, manifestation stops feeling transactional. It is no longer, "If I do the right things, the universe will reward me." Instead, you recognize the universe as me expressing myself. My desires are the field moving through me, seeking to experience itself in a new form. That recognition dissolves urgency. It removes the anxiety of asking, "Will it happen?" Because at the quantum level, it already has. The entanglement is complete. The only question left is, will you align with the version of you who knows it? Pause and breathe this in. Feel how different it is to live from unity consciousness versus separation. In separation, you are forever in pursuit. In unity, you are forever in remembrance. In separation, life feels like grasping for what you lack. In unity, life feels like embodying what you already are. This is why the path of quantum manifestation is not about manipulation, but about revelation. It reveals what has always been. It reminds you that the thread of connection is never broken, only ignored. And once you begin living from this unity, something miraculous happens. Synchronicities multiply. Opportunities align, relationships deepen, not because you forced them, but because your entangled reality finally had space to surface. This is the essence of entanglement and unity consciousness. You and your desire are already one. The field does not recognize distance, only resonance, which brings us to the doorway of the present moment itself. Because if all realities exist simultaneously, and you are already entangled with what you seek, then presence, not planning, is the gateway. We left the last section standing at the threshold of unity. You and your desires are already entangled, already one. But if that is true, then how do you access that unity in daily life? The answer is startlingly simple: presence. Presence is not a concept, it's not a technique. It is the state of awareness unclouded by past regrets or future anxieties. It is the now, uncluttered, unbroken, unmediated. And in that now, the illusion of separation dissolves. The chase ends. The waiting ends. You realize everything you seek is already vibrating here. Think of how your mind usually functions. It rushes backward, replaying old failures. It leaps forward, planning, strategizing, worrying about outcomes. The present moment is skipped over like a channel never tuned. But the quantum field doesn't operate in the past or future. It responds only to the signal you are embodying now. And if your now is fractured, anxious, distracted, the field mirrors that back to you. Presence, then, is coherence in its purest form. When you are truly present, thought, feeling, and body synchronize. You are not torn between yesterday and tomorrow. You exist fully, here. That state of unity is the frequency the field recognizes instantly. Pause and recall a moment of true presence. Perhaps watching a sunset, so beautiful you forgot yourself, or listening to music that pulled you completely into the sound, or holding someone you loved so deeply that time seemed to stop. In those moments, you weren't chasing, you weren't doubting, you weren't calculating, you were present. And because you were present, you were coherent. And because you were coherent, reality felt effortless. This is why manifestation teachers often emphasize mindfulness, meditation, breath, not because those practices are magic in themselves, but because they strip away the noise. They return you to now, where alignment already exists. Here's the paradox: most people resist presence because it feels unproductive. The cultural conditioning we explored earlier tells you to be always doing, always planning, always controlling. To simply be present feels like a waste of time, but that illusion is the very reason manifestation slips from your grasp. You can't collapse a timeline if you refuse to inhabit the only moment where collapse happens, the present one. Presence is the gateway because it neutralizes interference. Worries dissolve, regrets quiet. The compulsion to control eases. And in that silence, your natural coherence surfaces. The entanglement between you and your desire becomes undeniable. You sense it not as something distant, but as something alive within you. Imagine standing before a mirror. If you're restless, the reflection is restless. If you're calm, the reflection is calm. The quantum field works the same way. It doesn't project possibilities into the future. It mirrors your presence in the now. What you embody in this breath is what you collapse into reality. This is why practices of stillness are not passive. They are portals. When you sit quietly, when you breathe deeply, when you anchor yourself in this moment, you're not doing nothing. You're entering the precise state where creation happens. You're aligning with the coherent field where possibility becomes physical. But presence also demands courage, because to be present is to surrender the illusion of control. The mind resists, insisting, if I don't plan, if I don't anticipate, I won't be safe. Yet safety is found not in control, but in alignment. And alignment lives only in presence. So here's the invitation instead of asking. When will it happen? Ask, am I present now instead of grasping for the future? Allow yourself to feel the vibration of already being. Instead of running from moment to moment, land fully in this one, because this is the only place the quantum responds. Presence isn't the absence of desire. It's the recognition that desire and fulfillment coexist here, now, waiting for coherence to reveal them. And once you grasp that truth, the game changes. You stop looking for proof outside and begin generating resonance inside. This is why presence is the true gateway. And once you walk through it, you begin to discover another secret. Your emotional states themselves are the keys to frequency. We just crossed into presence, the gateway that dissolves time and reveals that manifestation only happens in the now. But within that presence, another layer emerges: the emotional states you inhabit. Because your emotions are not random moods, they are signals, frequencies that determine the quality of your alignment with the field. Science has begun to confirm what mystics have always taught. Your body is not simply matter, it is a transmitter. Every emotional state carries a unique signature, and that signature shapes how you interact with reality. Gratitude, joy, peace, these create coherent rhythms in the heart, regulate the nervous system, and broadcast steady fields of energy. Fear, doubt, urgency, these scatter the rhythm, produce incoherence, and fracture your signal. Think of emotions like colors of light. Coherence is the pure beam, focused, radiant, clear. Incoherence is a flickering bulb, unstable, weak, easily extinguished. Both are light, but only one illuminates fully. Your emotional states function the same way. When you live in fear, you dim your broadcast. When you settle into trust, your light becomes undeniable. This is why you cannot fake coherence. You can say all the affirmations you like, but if underneath them, you're vibrating with doubt, the field responds to the doubt. It doesn't mirror words, it mirrors the energy beneath the words. Pause here and feel into that truth. How often have you spoken abundance while secretly worrying about bills? How often have you affirmed love while carrying fear of abandonment? That contradiction isn't failure, it's simply incoherence. It's the mind saying one thing, the heart vibrating another, and the body carrying tension that disagrees with both. The signal fractures and manifestation feels delayed. But the solution is not to force yourself into artificial positivity. That's another form of resistance. The field doesn't require you to paste a smile over fear. It requires you to release the interference. Stillness, presence, breath, these allow your natural state of coherence to surface, and that natural state is joy. It is peace. It is love. You don't have to create them. You only have to stop covering them with noise. Consider the nervous system. When you're locked in survival mode, fight, flight, freeze, your body believes the world is unsafe. In that state, your frequency cannot expand. It contracts. But when your nervous system relaxes, when your breath deepens and your heart rhythm steadies, your field opens. You reconnect with the quantum. This is why emotional regulation is spiritual mastery. A calm heart is more magnetic than 1,000 frantic affirmations. And here's where coherence becomes practical. Instead of asking, "How do I get what I want?" ask, "What emotional state would I naturally feel if it were already here?" If you desire abundance, feel the relief, the gratitude, the generosity that abundance brings. If you desire love, feel the warmth, the openness, the joy that love awakens. Embody those states now, not as pretense, but as practice, because the moment you vibrate as though it already exists, you align with the timeline where it does. Think of it as tuning the dial on that radio again. Every emotion is a frequency. Anxiety tunes to static. Gratitude tunes to clarity. Doubt flickers between channels. Trust locks the station in. Your role is not to force the music, but to choose the frequency that reveals it. This is why gratitude is so powerful. It doesn't just make you feel better, it shifts your entire broadcast. It declares to the field, "I already have. I already am. I already align." That signal collapses reality faster than any ritual, because it carries the vibration of completion rather than lack. Pause again. What emotion are you broadcasting now? Not what you want to feel, not what you say you feel, but what's truly vibrating in your body. Awareness is the first act of coherence. Once you see the state you're in, you can decide, do I stay here or do I shift? This is the mastery hidden in plain sight. Your emotions are the keys, and you are the one playing the instrument. Choose coherence, and the song of your life becomes clear, magnetic, undeniable. And when you live that way, you discover something even greater. Your coherence doesn't just transform your own life. It ripples outward, awakening others, shaping the collective field of humanity itself. We ended with your emotions as frequency keys, the realization that coherence isn't just personal, it radiates outward. And this brings us to the final unveiling. Manifestation is not only about you, it is about us, about humanity, about the field we share. When you shift into coherence, the impact doesn't stop at your skin. Your heart, as science has measured, generates an electromagnetic field detectable several feet away. Your coherence influences not only your inner reality, but also the environment around you. It's like lighting a candle in a dark room. One flame doesn't just illuminate your corner, it changes the atmosphere for everyone present. Now imagine millions of candles being lit, millions of individuals stepping out of struggle, releasing resistance, embodying alignment. The collective field of humanity itself begins to shift. The old paradigm force, fear, scarcity loses its grip. A new paradigm flow, trust, unity emerges. This is not philosophy, it is physics. The field responds to coherence, and as more people embody it, coherence spreads like resonance through a choir. You've felt this before. Walk into a room where someone is anxious, and you feel the tension before they speak. Enter a space where someone is calm, and your body softens. These are small demonstrations of the collective field. Now magnify that to a planetary scale. What happens when enough of us live in alignment? Reality itself reorganizes. This is why your personal practice matters more than you realize. Each time you choose simplicity over struggle, presence over distraction, trust over urgency, you are not only altering your own timeline, you are strengthening the coherence of the collective. You are adding your frequency to a symphony that is reshaping humanity's future. Pause and let that land. Your breath, your alignment, your coherence. These are not small things. They are the levers of evolution. They are how the quantum field reweaves itself into a new pattern. Every act of alignment ripples outward, touching lives you may never meet, contributing to an awakening far beyond what your mind can measure. This is why the shift can feel so overwhelming at times. It isn't only personal resistance you're dissolving, it's generational conditioning, cultural programming, collective fear. When you feel the heaviness, it may not even belong entirely to you. You are processing frequencies that have entangled humanity for centuries. And yet, by choosing coherence anyway, you become a point of liberation in the web. Think of a spider's web. Touch one strand, and the vibration ripples across the entire structure. That is how consciousness works. You are one strand connected to the whole. Every time you vibrate in alignment, the signal travels, strengthening the integrity of the web. Every time you return to simplicity, you remind the whole system of its natural harmony. And here's the deeper truth. The collective awakening is already underway. Look around. More and more people are questioning the story of endless struggle. More and more are seeking flow instead of force, simplicity instead of complexity. What you feel inside is part of a much larger resonance. You are not alone in this shift. You are part of a wave rising across the planet. So ask yourself, how do you wish to contribute? Not by forcing others to change, not by preaching or persuading, but by embodying, by becoming a living transmission of coherence, by letting your presence itself remind others of what is possible. That is how awakening spreads, not through argument, but through resonance. And this is where the personal and the collective converge. When you choose coherence, you not only transform your own timeline, you open pathways for humanity. Your embodiment becomes permission for others. Your stillness becomes their doorway. Your trust becomes their mirror. This is how the new paradigm is born. So let this truth settle deep. You are not just manifesting for yourself. You are participating in the evolution of consciousness itself. And as your alignment strengthens, so too does the collective shift. Which brings us to the closing note of this journey, a softening into remembrance, a gentle wind down into the simplicity that has been calling you from the start. We close where we began, with simplicity. Throughout this journey, you've seen how struggle was programmed, how complication created static, how coherence unlocks reality, how presence is the gateway, and how your emotions become the keys. And finally, how your personal awakening ripples into the collective field. All of it points back to one truth: it was never meant to be complicated. Feel this in your body now. The striving, the forcing, the deadlines, all of it can soften. What you desire is not out there, running ahead of you. It is here, already entangled with you, waiting for your signal to become clear. You don't need to chase it. You don't need to prove yourself worthy of it. You only need to allow. Simplicity is not inaction, it is precision. It is choosing to embody the state where your desire already exists. And when you do, coherence emerges naturally, the static dissolves. The song of your life comes through strong and pure. So breathe with me one more time. Inhale softly, exhale fully. In this moment, nothing is missing. In this moment, you are whole. In this moment, the field is already reflecting who you are becoming. And remember, your coherence is not only for you. Each time you return to presence, you strengthen the collective awakening. You are one flame among many, but together those flames illuminate the world. So let this be your quiet declaration. I allow it to be effortless. Say it not as a wish, but as a remembrance. Because effortlessness is your natural state. Coherence is your birthright. And alignment is the frequency of who you truly are. Carry this with you beyond these words. Let simplicity guide you. Let presence anchor you. Let coherence shape you. You are no longer chasing. You are embodying. You are allowing. And in that state, reality has no choice but to mirror your truth.